Learning to code is easy until it's not. When you first start learning to code, you learn about the basic operations and the syntax. This all seems fairly straightforward and you gain some confidence in your abilities. But as time goes on, you start trying to build your own projects, and this is where the problems usually occur. The hardest part about learning how to code isn't actually writing the code, it's learning how to solve problems. To overcome this, people tend to go and search for tutorials to try and find that tutorial that will show them exactly what they need to build. This could be to build a website or an API or maybe even a game. If they're lucky, they find exactly the right tutorial that matches the project that they want to build, and maybe they only need to change a few superficial things like the colours or the layout. As they follow along the tutorial, there's inevitably going to be a few things that they don't understand. There might be a piece of code, or they don't understand exactly what something's doing. But they just copy and paste the code and they tell themselves, oh, I'll cover that later. They never do. After following the tutorial, they've got something that works, and then they just make a few changes, make it look like their own work, and then they pat themselves on the back. The problem is they haven't learned how to do anything themselves. When they go to start a similar project, they get stuck because they can't remember what they did during the tutorial. So naturally, they go and search for another tutorial when they come to build their next project. This is what we refer to as tutorial hell. You can build out the tutorial, it works fine, but when you come to build out your own project, you get stuck. You're in your own personal programming hell loop. The problem is instructors make everything look easy. Before they've actually recorded any of the course, they've gone and built out the project themselves. They've worked out what doesn't work. They've got stuck, they've debugged it, and they finally got to a working solution. And it's that working solution that you're seeing during the tutorial. But by following the tutorial, you're missing out on all these mistakes and failures that the instructor went through. And it's often those very failures that help you remember how to do something the next time you come to do it. So how do we go about actually learning things instead of just following tutorials so we can apply them to the next projects that we come to build? This was a skill that I learned when I was at university studying physics. When I was doing A-level physics, which I think is similar to AP courses in America, I had to learn around 15 equations. At the time, I thought that was impossible. How am I going to learn 15 equations off the top of my head to be able to do the exams? Then I went to university and I had to learn over 100 equations. Not only that, but I needed to know how to derive them from first principles. The thing is, being able to derive them actually made them easier to learn and remember. The first principles were really just the 15 equations that I already knew, so I was building on top of previous knowledge. To get to the other equations, I had to understand how the scientists came up with them originally. I had to understand the meaning behind the equations. What I didn't understand at the time was that by understanding the meaning behind the equations, I was using different parts of my brain in order to remember them. In my head, I was picturing what led to the equation, whether it be the planets orbiting around stars or the interaction between atoms. You see this a lot with memory athletes, the people that can remember a whole deck of cards in a certain order. The thing is, they don't just try and dryly remember the cards in order. They imagine themselves in a room, and then they look around the room and assign different playing cards to the different objects. So when they come to recall what all of the cards are, they just have to mentally look around the room and recall what the card is. The key here is to engage different parts of your brain while you're trying to remember something. Now obviously, learning how to code isn't like remembering a deck of cards or a scientific equation. When you're following a tutorial, the key is to understand what each line of code is doing instead of just blindly copying it. Then when you've worked out what that line of code is doing, write it down somewhere, put it down in a notebook or your note-taking application. If you're more of a visual person, how about you draw a diagram trying to explain what that line of code is doing? It's the act of writing or drawing that is going to help you use different parts of your brain and therefore help you remember things easier. You don't want to rely on tutorials to build out projects. You need to work out how to build them yourself. It's fine to Google the syntax for things, I still do it now. The key is not to rely on it, don't go searching for a solution straight away. Yes, you are going to struggle when learning how to code, but it's the struggle and overcoming those obstacles that's going to help you become a better programmer in the long run. When you manage to solve a problem yourself, it's going to be a lot easier to solve it next time you come across it. If you like this video, then please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, when you're learning to code, it's very common to feel like you don't know what you're doing. If you get this feeling and you feel like everyone else knows more than you do, then you might like to watch this one on imposter syndrome. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.